Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Ashley, we can.
Okay.
There's
With
some
a big echo.
though.
Yeah, if your computer speakers are on, you'll want to turn them off. That might be the issue.
No, she went again. She's done. Solo che adesso ci sentono perché qualcuno ha avviato la trasmissione.
Okay, let's mute.
Ok.
We had to mute them because they were listening to us in this moment, everybody.
Yeah.
Behind the scenes.
I see Kelsey has the correct background with the
Yes, and this
uniform.
this is a map of Mount Rainier as well. The mountain is the white spot and the rest is the southern area.
Okay.
Again, I see Ashley. Okay. But she cannot hear us. Hello to everybody. We are going to start in 2 minutes.
Okay.
In a couple of minutes. Okay.
Hi, Ashley, we see you.
Poor Ashley. Okay.
Hello.
Hello, Ashley?
Hello.
We hear you. It's a little muddled.
Hello.
We can hear you.
Hello.
Testing
Yeah.
1, 2, 3.
Is that Ashley you can hear?
We can hear Ashley.
Thank God. Okay.
Just in
So
time,
Ashley,
I would say.
we're just about to start any second now. Can you speak again?
Hello?
We
Yes.
can hear you.
Okay. That was trying.
Okay.
Really,
This is
last second.
last second. We can hear you. Ashley, just one note. When we get started, once it goes to individuals speaking, we'll turn our webcams off. So it's just the individual speaking still on webcam. So all of us right now for intros is fine. Then webcams off when it goes to individuals. And then I'll advance the slides for everybody, of course. And then we'll have time for questions at the end.
Okay.
You good?
Leah, I think that we can start even if we are quite short of all the attendees, but I think we should be punctual.
Okay, so please, you can already start because it's opened, so we
It's
are
open
online.
now?
Yeah, is it?
Okay. Ok, allora buona serata a tutti e un buongiorno invece ai nostri ospiti americani che ci stanno per fare la presentazione. Un grande ringraziamento a voi tutti quanti che siete riusciti a connettervi nonostante l'ora di lavoro. Abbiamo questa grande possibilità e questo onore appunto di poter ospitare anche oggi i nostri ranger dei parchi nazionali del US National Park System. Proseguirò in inglese perché appunto come vi ricordo che questa presentazione sarà in inglese. So thanks a lot everybody again for being here with us, and I would like to present our panelists today. We have Donnie, which is our master. He was also here in the last presentation. We have Kelsey and Ashley speaking from the United States. Hello, everybody. So today we are going to be going right to the other side of the US on the West Coast. And I wouldn't add anything else, if not just giving the line to Donald that he's going to be our master of ceremonies. And thanks a lot again for everybody. And let's start with the presentation then.
Very good. Thank you, Nicolo. And hello, everybody. Excuse me. Excuse me. Good afternoon to you. I'm so sorry. What a rough start to the presentation. Thank you so much for tuning in today. We really appreciate the chance to speak with you and present some of the amazing opportunities for discovery and adventure and experiences that can be had in the national parks in the Pacific Northwest region of the United States. My name is Donald Ledbetter. I'm the Tourism Program Manager for the National Park Service, and presenting with me today are my colleagues Kelsey Larson, a Management Support Specialist, and Ashley Lord, an Interpretive Park Ranger. We are speaking to you from across the United States, from Washington, D.C. to Florida to California. So this is truly an international presentation. We're going to be talking about the national parks of the Pacific Northwest. It's one of my favorite parts of the country. I lived there for a short period of time. It has incredible geography from the Cascade and Northern Sierra Nevada mountains down to the Pacific coast, and incredible forests, heavily forested part of the country. So amazing mountains and forests and waters and rivers. It's just amazing. Before we talk about that region of the country, we did want to take a few minutes to talk about the national park system in general, to kind of situate our conversation and then focus in on the region. If you tuned in to the last presentation, this will be a little bit of the same information. So my apologies for that, but there may be some new people joining the presentation this time, and we want to cover some of the big picture, general information. So first, I'm going to talk about for a few minutes just the national park system in general. And it's important because we always like to promote the width and breadth of that national park system. It's much larger than most people realize, especially international visitors. Your customers and your clients, they'll be familiar with the Grand Canyon, with Yosemite National Park, with maybe Glacier National Park or different national parks in Utah. The national parks tend to be the most famous designation, but the national park system is much larger and actually has 423 units in the national park system. We have park units in every state, in 5 territories, and the District of Columbia, and we have about 20 different designations: national parks, national historic sites, national monuments, national battlefields, national lake shores, national recreation areas. It's a large, diverse system that includes many of the most important or significant or unique or inspiring natural, cultural, historic, heritage sites across the United States. So no matter where you're traveling in the United States, there's probably some national park system units that you can include in your trip. And your clients would be visiting some of the most important and authentic and really impactful places in the United States. Now, what is most impressive about the national park system is not just its size or its width and its breadth and its diversity, but it's what you can do in the national park system. You know, that's the real core of the national park experiences, is how you can experience these places, from wildlife viewing, general, sightseeing and auto touring through the parks, visiting archaeological sites, precious, priceless, and unique archaeological sites that date back thousands of years in North America, key moments of American history in the American Revolution, the Civil War, the earliest days of the United States and the founding of this country, recreation activities, outdoor recreation activities, hiking, biking, climbing, kayaking, rafting, ranger-led activities, the amazing Park Service rangers that we have on staff who help connect visitors with the resources and understand them and feel like they're really getting to know and understand the layers and stories of these individual park units. Experiencing history, we have amazing museums, amazing historic homes, historic sites. So it's just a huge width and breadth of things to do and experience in the national park system. Just a couple of practical pieces of information about the national park system. So one practical component is fees, entrance fees. Most of the park units do not charge an entrance fee. Most are free, 315 out of the entire system. Some park units will look like the picture in the bottom right. That's the National Mall in Washington, D.C. You see it's a big open space. There's no entrance or exit. There's no fee involved. Other park units might have a single entrance or a single exit that you drive in or drive out, but still have no fee. So that's most of the park units. Now, about 108 do charge entrance fees, and some of them will look like the photo in the top left. An entry point, you encounter an entrance station or a fee booth, we might call it. You'll meet a ranger, you'll pay the entrance fees, you'll receive a map, a guide and map to the park, which is very, very useful, and some basic information, to prepare you for your visit. Those entrance fees range from $20 to $35 a vehicle. Typically, that's for 1 week of access. So it's a bargain. It's an absolute bargain. We do have an annual pass. If your clients or customers are going to visit multiple national parks in a trip, we do have a pass that costs $80 that might be worthwhile. I always recommend they can buy that pass at the first park they visit that charges an entrance fee. So if they're going to a park that charges a fee, they can buy the pass right there. It's very easy, and it's easier than trying to get it ahead of time. Two other pieces of practical information. Visitor centers. Most of our parks, many park units, I'd say the significant majority, have at least one visitor center, sometimes even more. And we highly recommend stopping by the visitor center. The staff there, the rangers, the volunteers, they can really help orient you to your park visit. They'll know about the unique activities taking place that day. Maybe there's unique wildlife activity taking place. Maybe there are special programs or demonstrations or special exhibits. Maybe there are road closures. Maybe there are practical issues that are important to know about in a park. The visitor center can help you out with that. Many of our visitor centers also have amazing exhibits and presentations and museums and films, award-winning films. Highly recommend stopping by the visitor center. Also, it's a great place for those practical needs, maybe a beverage or a drink if they have retail, the restrooms, that sort of thing. We also recommend, and this is an important point for your clients, for your customers, because you are going to prepare your clients and customers for their national park visit, right? But it's also important, I think, for them to prepare themselves as well. National parks are kind of they're a less curated experience than, say, a cruise or an all-inclusive resort. National parks are the kind of place where you should lean in to the planning and to the experience. I think that doing some research ahead of time about the park to get to know it and its contours and what to do and how its geography is laid out can really help save time, so you're not figuring all of that out when you get there. So a little bit of planning, what to see, where to go, having a sense of what you want to do can go a long way. So we have a great website at nps.gov. Many parks have their own app. And this spring, we're launching a new park system-wide app that will include all of the sites in the national park system. So a new app coming soon, both to Android and Apple devices. And then finally, I recommend following park social media channels. In the days before visiting a specific park, start following that park on social media, or even weeks before, and you'll get a sense of the activities of the park. They're a great source of information. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, highly recommended. Now, 2 more pieces of practical information. One is about visitor services. Depending on the type of park, there may be an array of visitor services that your clients and customers might be interested in or might need for their park experience. So at one end of the spectrum, maybe there's a historic home in Washington, D.C., or a historic site in Philadelphia. That one, you just visit for the day, you check it out for a few hours, and then you're done. You don't need many visitor services. At the other end of the spectrum, many of our big national parks may have lodging. Maybe your clients are interested in staying in the park and interested in lodging options. Many parks have guided experiences available: guided hiking, guided climbing, guided rafting, guided kayaking, guided photography walks, and that sort of thing that we do with private sector companies. Some parks are only reachable via a ferry. So the Statue of Liberty, Ellis Island, Alcatraz, Dry Tortugas National Park in Florida, you have to take a ferry to get there. So the range of services will vary widely as to what your customers and clients might be interested in using. And we have a lot of planning information available at nps.gov. So visit the park website under Plan Your Visit, things to do, places to go, eating and sleeping, basic information. There will be a lot of information there about the different visitor services that might be available. So let's say someone wants to stay at the Ahwahnee Hotel in Yosemite National Park. They'll want to book that well ahead of time. It's very, very popular. And the Yosemite website can lead you to the hotel website where they do the booking and reservations. Also, I want to mention we use another website, just to make it complicated, called recreation.gov. We use that website for most of our campground reservations, and some other tour reservations are on recreation.gov as well. And there are links between nps.gov and these other websites. So when you research a specific park, the links are right there to take you to any other websites. Okay, my last comment is about visitor safety, and is about leave no trace and caring for our parks. And we really need everybody's help in protecting our parks and in keeping your customers and clients and park visitors safe. So whenever I talk with tour packagers, with wholesalers and tour guide companies, intermediaries, I always ask you to help us deliver these messages about leave no trace, about being safe, about taking care and staying away from wildlife. Hopefully in these pictures, you can see some behavior that is not recommended behavior. So when you're talking with your customers and clients, please remind them to keep their eyes open, to practice leave no trace principles, to follow the signs in the national parks. There will be signs and information about staying on trails, about avoiding wildlife. So just a small reminder about that important message as well. Okay, that's some general information about the national park system. Now to look specifically at the Pacific Northwest region, I'm going to hand it over to Kelsey.
All right, thanks, Donnie. So I am so happy to share with you today our start of the Pacific Northwest. We have many parks to feature, starting with Washington, on the next slide. All right, so as you can see, Washington is a beautiful place full of nature. There's coastline, there's mountains, there's rivers and waterfalls, there's amazing trees and wildlife. So I'm very excited to share with you some trip ideas that you can offer to your clients in Washington. I recommend starting in Seattle Tacoma International Airport. As you can see from this view of the iconic Seattle skyline, there is the mountain in the background of Mount Rainier, but all of the sites that I am sharing with you today are within about 3 hours or less from the airport. So as you can see on the next slide with the map, I have selected a number of recommended sites that are featured in the photographs, with the 3 big parks, Mount Rainier National Park, Olympic National Park, and North Cascades National Park. As you can see, the airport is at a good central location for all of these sites. So we'll go ahead on the next slide and get started with introducing you to Mount Rainier National Park. I spent 4.5 years there as a park ranger before moving to the state of California. So all of these are my own photographs. So as you can see, it is a gorgeous mountain. It's known for spectacular summertime wildflower blooms that take place late July into August. It's known for the glaciers of the peaks, which you can see in the photo on the bottom, as well as rustic park buildings. So this park was actually the first to have an overall design. So it was meant for travelers coming by personal vehicle. At the turn of the century, that was a new experience. So there's a lot of great opportunity for self-guided auto touring in this park. On the next page, we will see a specific map of the Mount Rainier area. So as you can see up at the top of that map, SeaTac Airport, as it is known, is the international airport, and it is featured. And you can see there are a number of entrances. And the entrances are really only open during the summer. There is only one entrance on the southwest side through the town of Ashford that remains open year round. The rest are all snowed in. My personal recommendation to, as you book accommodations for clients, is most of the small towns that are outside of the park have vacation rentals. There aren't really big resorts to book at. So definitely planning ahead for booking accommodations for 1 to 3 nights, I think would be great for clients. I personally recommend, if someone is to visit the park and go through all of it, is to start on the east side through that White River entrance, because for that route, you will be driving towards the mountain more than coming from the other side. So you get a lot more scenic views, which is wonderful. But you can access the east side to the west side via Stevens Canyon scenic route, which on the western end of that road is Reflection Lakes, which is, as you can see, where on clear days, when the wind is still, you get an actual reflection of the mountain in that lake, which is very nice and very popular, and parking right off the road, which makes it very accessible. But on the next slide, as you can see, these are the images that we think of when we think of the mountain. But it is important to note that most of the park is closed from October through June. And so the best time to visit to see most of the park would be July, August, or September. The photo of the big snowplow trying to access buildings is in June, as they go in to unbury the buildings to put utilities back in for the summer. That is the Sunrise Visitor Center. It is the highest elevation facility within the park that does not require mountain climbing. So that is the highest point you can reach by vehicle. So of course, snow often remains until July. That parking area, those facilities, there is a snack shop, gift shop, visitor center, wonderful hiking, but does not open until early July. But once it melts out, as you can see, that picture on the left is from Natchez Peak Loop on the east side, and that is the very last weekend in July. And as you can see, the snow has melted at those higher elevations and made way for beautiful wildflowers. But those meadows are very fragile. So like as Donnie was saying with Leave No Trace, very important to always share the message, to always stay on trails, so that the wildflowers can continue to bloom and bring visitors to see their beauty. All right, so hiking is a major activity. Day hikes do not require permits or reservations. It can be very much self-guided. There are plenty of options in every area of the park, but anything that requires overnight, so whether that's backpacking in the wilderness or climbing to the higher elevations, which Mount Rainier is known for being for technical climbing, much like Denali or Mount Everest, or camping. They all require advanced planning. Very popular, but I would also recommend, as every visitor drives through the entrance station to pay the vehicle entrance, they do receive the park newspaper, which will list the daily ranger programs that happen on all sides of the park. But those are also activities that could be planned ahead. But there are evening programs at one of the 3 campgrounds throughout the week where rangers will actually take the visitors either on a trail or like the campground programs where they're around the amphitheater on park benches and describing specific things, whether that's the nature, the wildlife, the science that happens in the park, or park history. So lots of different activities that you can select from. And as you can see, that's me as a hiker. Lots of opportunities. Some of them are easy strolls that are on nature trails, great for children. There are junior ranger programs that the children will take their booklet through those easy trails. But then there are also trails that have varying elevation, quite strenuous adventures. And there are areas of the park that are only accessible by foot. There are vendors in the local area of Seattle that will rent gear. So don't necessarily need to pack all of the backpacking items for that international trip. Some of the items like pack, tent, sleeping bag could be rented in the area. But definitely important to have those essential items with you if you are off to do those multi-day hikes in the park. So that's Mount Rainier. But again, I definitely recommend going during the summer. It just has so many more activity options. The next park to feature is out on the peninsula of Olympic National Park. It is known for being part of UNESCO. It is a World Heritage Site and is known for being 3 parks in 1. So no matter what activity your clients might want, there's a good chance they can find it in Olympic National Park. There's rugged coastlines, there's ancient forests and temperate rainforests and rugged mountains at those higher elevations. There's even Solduck Hot Springs Resort, which has soaking pools for those who stay in that lodging. So a wide range of great opportunities there. On the next slide, we will see the map of the peninsula. So as you can see, Olympic has many different locations. Most of these locations have ranger stations. There are visitor centers on the coast at Kalaloch. The Quinault Rainforest has a ranger station and lodging. The Hoh Rainforest has a full visitor center. Solduck is where those hot springs are. And Port Angeles is the biggest city biggest town on the peninsula, providing access to the mountains at Hurricane Ridge, where there is another large visitor center. Lots of great things to see. This park has lower elevations, so Hurricane Ridge receives snow, but the lower elevations often mean that they are open year-round for the areas, though all the facilities like the ranger station may just be for the summer, from June through October. There are 14 campgrounds. Most of them are first come, first serve, but 3 do accept advanced reservations. But again, very important to plan ahead, because all of the towns you see, Hood, Sport, Forks, Port Angeles, are smaller towns, Port Angeles being the largest. So there are plenty of accommodations, but do require that early planning that you can provide for your clients. All right, so as you leave the peninsula, you could certainly go back to SeaTac, but I suggest adding on a bonus trip and picking one of the smaller parks within Washington. So there are 2 I would like to feature with you today. Both are small historic units of the National Park Service. Both can be accessed by the famous Washington State Ferry System. There's Evie's Landing on Whidbey Island, located in the small historic town of Coupeville, with antiques, bed and breakfasts, restaurants, shopping. Or there's San Juan Island National Historical Park, and that's in Friday Harbor on San Juan Island, which also offers antiques, bed and breakfasts, shopping, dining, and both provide easy scenic hikes along coastal bluffs, mild, moderate weather, which is very nice during the summer. Both islands have whale watching during the peak months of June through September, which is a great activity to do in the area. It's quite special for the Puget Sound and the Pacific Northwest, the whales that come up every summer. So I would recommend adding those on. Logistically, Evie's Landing might be easier because Whidbey Island does have vehicle access via the famous Deception Pass Bridge. It's very scenic, but that's coming if you come from the north side. Where San Juan Island, you can only access by ferry or plane. So there is no bridge road access to the San Juan Islands. So on the next slide, I will feature the last park, which is North Cascades National Park. Coming from Italy, it might be interested to know that they are known as the American Alps. So your clients could come see how the mountains compare to the Alps of Europe. Most of this park is accessed by hiking or backpacking or boating. So something that is special about North Cascades is some of their campsites are actually kayak or boat in. So that's the only way to reach those campsites. Lake Chelan has Stehekin, which is only accessed either through a very long hike, multiple days, or there is the Lady of the Lake ferry system that brings visitors to where there is lodging along the lake. And there are, as you can see, Diablo Lake is this beautiful teal color, which is quite incredible to see. That viewpoint is from the parking lot, so does not require too much effort just for that viewpoint, but does allow for more adventurous access through all of the wilderness that the park provides. There are 5 campgrounds open in the summer, 4 of which are reservable in advance. So they can certainly be planned ahead for this special park. There's one main route of Highway 20 and it runs through the park, but it's only open in the summer and fall. Often opens late May into June and stays open until the snow begins to accumulate, often November. So again, another reason why picking the summertime might be the best option for clients so that they can see a lot of the beauty that the Pacific Northwest has to offer. But with that, that's when most of the visitation occurs, is in the summer. So again, that's why planning those accommodations in advance, it can be one of the most important parts of a successful trip. All right. So hopefully this has been a good glimpse of the major parks within Washington State. I could answer any specific questions during the question and answer about specific programs. But again, I would say planning in advance All of these parks offer great scenic drives for self-guided adventures, and all of them have ranger programs throughout the summer, often throughout the week or even daily. It just requires planning of reading those park newspapers and seeing where the ranger programs will be held for a particular location during the week. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ranger Ashley. I'm an interpretive park ranger with the National Park Service. Currently, I am located in Florida, but I have spent approximately 5 years living out in Washington State. So I really love the Northwest. If I lived anywhere else, it would be out there for sure. So what we are going to cover now is the Northern California, Southern Oregon location of the Northwest. And what we have here on the map is called the Circle of Discovery. And we have listed all the national parks that are in that Circle of Discovery: Redwoods National and State Parks, Oregon Caves National Monument and Preserve, Crater Lake National Park, Tule Lake Unit, Lava Beds National Monument, Lassen Volcanic National Park, and Whiskeytown National Park Recreation Area. So what hopefully we can plan is possible itineraries for you. So what I'm going to start here is on the next slide where you might land into the states. So we have 3 possible international airports. We have probably the closest to your areas here is the Rogue Valley International Medford Airport. Also to the north, we have Portland International, and down in California, we have the Sacramento International Airport. Next slide, Donnie. So for the purposes of our trip today, so your route may change varying on which airport you fly into. But for now, we're going to start from the south end and move up through the Redwoods National Park. So if we were going from south to north along State Road 101, we would be going to the Cuchell Visitor Center. And this site, the Redwoods National and State Park Preserve, is known as a World Heritage Site as well. And these enormous trees transcend human scale and dominate the imagination like few other places. And these trees came very close to extinction, and that's why they're preserved in this area. These parks also protect vast prairies, oak woodlands, wild riverways, and nearly 40 miles of rugged coast. So if you were to continue driving through Highway 101 north up the coast, the first place you would come to see is this visitor center. You could pick up, ranger-led. You can get a ranger-led program, pick up a junior ranger book, watch a video, take a break, use a restroom, watch the park film. Next slide, Donnie. And from the Cuchell Visitor Center, you could head to the next visitor center, which is the Prairie Creek Visitor Center. And you could go on a short hike from there, and it's called the Fern Canyon Trail. And this is a popular destination. It also comes with, though, elks, crowds, and has lots of streams. This is a 50 to 80 foot high fern wall on this trail that is one of the most popular walking trails that you'll find. And it's just east of the Gold Bluffs Beach that's on the map there. You won't find the huge redwoods here, but you'll see the Sitka spruce and other conifers. The trail is a 1 mile loop and has an elevation gain of 100 feet. The hikers can stick to the bed of Home Creek. You'll see these steep leafy walls. And this in and out option is a 30-foot elevation change. Either of these options might mean climbing through log jams that occur in winter floods. And before you set off to Fern Canyon, be sure to check the park conditions. If you're looking for a longer hike, There's one, it's called the James Irving Trail, and it also starts off from the Prairie Creek Visitor Center, and it is 12 miles long. This moderate hike travels through majestic forest and ends at the famous Fern Canyon and Home Creek. Make sure to pack suitable clothes for rainy weather, and regardless of the time of year and these activities you intend to pursue, you may need a waterproof jacket and comfortable waterproof footwear. Next slide, Donnie. So there is a herd of Roosevelt elk often in this area, and it's important to keep your distance and don't approach them. All recommended viewing is 25 yards or farther away. In the early summer, the females will protect their fawns by kicking with their massive front legs, and the male elk will fight for dominance in the fall. So these male elk bull can weigh as much as 1,200 pounds, and the Roosevelt elk are majestic but can pose hazards, so keep your distance. Next slide. So if you want to see the giant redwood trees, you might want to go to the Prairie Creek State Park. It's just off the Newton B. Drury Scenic Parkway, and a viewing platform and interpretive signage are located just outside the park and just outside the parking lot. The walk to the big trees is less than 200 yards from the parking area. This location is popular with visitors, tour groups, and charter buses that have less than half an hour to experience the redwoods. Limited RV and trailer parking is available. Detailed trail information and audio boxes are located at the trailhead. There are also other short hikes that are about 15 minutes long in this area. Next slide. So the next town that you could run into possibly is Crescent City. And this photograph is of the Battery Point Lighthouse, which dates back to 1856. And this might be a good spot on your tour to stop and take a break, have a meal, fill up your gas tank. And then next slide. Then we're going to head to Oregon Caves National Monument. And once you leave the redwoods, it's about a 2 or 3 hour drive to Oregon Caves. And don't use the internet mapping system. It's recommended to go on their website to check for directions, because your system may send you in the wrong direction or up dangerous, steep roads that may not lead you to the correct location. Next slide. So deep within these mountains, you'll find dark and twisting passages that await your discovery. Eons of acidic water seeping through the marble rock has created and decorated these wondrous marble halls of Oregon. You can join a cave tour in late March through early November and stop at the visitor center for up-to-the-minute information and buy same-day cave tour tickets. Please keep in mind in the summertime, they will sell out. It does get busy there. Only the first room in the cave is wheelchair accessible. For safety reasons, service animals are not allowed along most of the cave tour, though at the owner's discretion, they may have access to the first room of the cave. Next slide. Hiking trails is open year-round. For a short hike, you can go up the Old Growth Trail, which is pictured here on the slide. And it's a 1 mile loop trail, and it takes approximately 20 minutes. Some of the wildlife you may encounter on your hike could be the Siskiyou chipmunk, and it's found in a limited range in Northern California and Southern Oregon. Also the Steller's jay, which is a brilliant blue bird, and it was named after George Steller, a German naturalist who discovered it on an Alaskan island in 1741. These Steller's jays are excellent mimics and are often able to imitate other birds, cats, dogs, squirrels, and mechanical objects. The northern spotted owl is a threatened species and will often only be found in these areas as well. Next slide. Next, we could go to Crater Lake. And Crater Lake is 7,700 years old. Scientists marvel at its purity. It's fed by rain and snow and is the deepest lake in the United States. One of the most pristine on Earth. Artists, photographers, sightseers gaze at this wondrous site at Cascade Mountain Range. Next slide. The 33-mile historic rim drive circumnavigates the lake. When it is open during the summer and early fall, along the drive are 30 overlooks that were designed between 1931 and 1938. Each overlook highlights a specific view of the lake, a significant geological formation in the caldera, and an environmental feature such as the subalpine meadow. Some of these stops have exhibits with information about the view. Other viewpoints leave room for visitors' curiosity and discovery. Next slide. The Steele Visitor Center is open daily, year-round, and the Rim Visitor Center is only open in the summer. There you can watch a video, shop at the store, or pick up a Junior Ranger book. Next slide. Some activities include snowshoeing with a ranger in the winter or hiking in the warmer seasons along trails. Next slide. So if you have time to explore other parks within the Circle of Discovery, I would recommend visiting Lassen Volcanic Park, National Park. Also along that path is Lava Beds National Monument. So you could stop and see lava beds and then go to Lassen. Next slide. The Lassen Komyamani Visitor Center, which is on the bottom left, is open year-round and located a mile from the southwest entrance of the park. The Visitor Center offers an information desk, exhibit hall, auditorium, amphitheater, park store, dining area, and fireplace. The entrance fee here is $30 and is good for 7 consecutive days. There are campgrounds at Lassen Volcanic, and there's also a Drakesburg guest ranch lodge that you can stay at. And if you want to reserve, it's required. They're available through June through October, and you can reserve on recreation.gov. Lassen's stunning geologic features, such as the volcanic domes, are part of the most recently active Lassen Volcanic Center, which began to erupt about 825,000 years ago. Represented in the park are all 4 types of volcano found in the world: shield, composite, cinder cone, and plug dome. Unlike other Cascade volcanoes, Lassen's large plug dome and composite volcanoes are in close proximity to the small cinder cone volcano that surround the volcanic center. While the area still sleeps, there are all these areas are still very active, and no one can say when we will see the next eruption. All we can say is that it will happen. Thank you for your time. We hope that you can enjoy some of these wonderful, magical areas located in the Pacific Northwest. And I'll hand it over to Donnie.
Thank you, Ashley, and thank you, Kelsey. I'll invite you both to come back on and feel free to turn your webcams on. We've got plenty of time. I think we can take some questions, and we'll look in the chat box for some questions that are already in there, and we can grab them. So please, everyone, feel free to add any more questions in the question section. I think we'll look there. I just want to say in closing that I hope you saw some inspiring options here in the Pacific Northwest. I think for visitors from Italy, it's probably a part of the country that is not the first part of the country you visit. You know, most Italian visitors, New York City, Florida, California, Las Vegas, but it could be their first. I highly recommend it as a second, a third, maybe a first. the scenery there is beautiful and amazing. I think people will really love the landscape and how easy it is to explore on a road trip. The diversity of the topography, the variety of the wildlife, flora and fauna, the friendliness of the people. It's a moody part of the country. There's often weather and rain and snow at elevations. So it's a dynamic part of the country, which I personally find interesting and enjoyable. So we hope that this looked very inspiring for you, and we'll be happy to answer some questions. And Ashley and Kelsey, feel free to grab anything you see coming in through the questions. I'll throw the first one out there. People were asking about the cost of the annual pass. And please, my colleagues, correct me if I say anything wrong. $80, it's $80, and it's good for 1 year, the rest of that calendar year. It's not a total calendar year. The pass is good for the calendar year. Does it include all costs for national parks? It includes entrance fees. So it will get you into national parks, also other public lands in the United States. We have national forests, we have wildlife refuges, we have other places that are included in the pass. There may be extra costs for other activities in a park. If there's a guided tour, if there's a cave tour that has a fee, if there's a boat trip run by a concessionaire, campsites, of course, things like that would be extra. So the pass is for entrance to the parks.
Yes, but most parks do not charge additionally for parking. And so you're able to, as you drive through, it covers the vehicle and wherever it might go, except for those additional amenities. I did see a question in the chat about purchasing that annual pass in advance. I would not recommend that. You can through the USGS, but then would need to have it sent. And if you did not get it in time, you wouldn't be able to, show receipt that would not count for entrance. So like Donnie was saying at the beginning, it is just much easier upon the first park that you visit that charges an entrance fee, which in Washington State would be Mount Rainier and Olympic. North Cascades does not charge an entrance. You would just, instead of purchasing the single visit, you would just get that pass, and then it's good for that trip and then all the future ones while you're here in the United States.
I see a very important question that means a lot to all of us at the Park Service, which is about accessibility. Which are the most accessible parks for impaired travelers using wheelchairs? That's a great question. So I'll speak first, and then Kelsey and Ashley, your own experience. I think what we try to do at the National Park Service is in every park and every unit, we try to make those parks accessible for a wide range of users. It's hard to say that one single park is the most accessible. I think for many of our parks, we work and invest in the visitor centers, in the kind of front country places that you can access by road and by parking lot. They have to be accessible to some level. And so we work very hard to make that type of experience accessible. And then it's very, very common and very frequent that we will have very flat, accessible paths and trails from those visitor centers. We'll often have a 1 mile loop, a half a mile kind of simple loop from a visitor center that at least gets those users into the park in some way. And then, of course, from there, in many of our parks, we have levels of difficulty for our hikes. So we try to have that full range of accessibility in a park, including accessible visitor centers, accessible facilities, and accessible, flat trails, usually near those front country places. So most of our parks, honestly, will have something that a wheelchair user will be able to experience. But there's some nuance to that too. So I'll turn to Kelsey and Ashley for any comments you all have.
Yeah, one of the nice things is every park website will most likely, if you just search for accessible, will give suggestions of places to go. I think that's one of the nice things of Mount Rainier and Olympic is so much of the park experience was designed to be done by vehicle. So just scenic driving is fully accessible within the car. It is harder at Mount Rainier. There are a few wheelchair accessible trails, but so much of it is at a steepness because it's on the slopes of the mountain. North Cascades Visitor Center actually has a boardwalk trail right behind the Visitor Center building, which is a great way to get into the forest for a short distance, and that's fully accessible as well. But that is one nice thing, is the park websites will often feature suggested trails for different levels of accessibility.
I agree with everything you guys just said. I think when the app comes out full-fledged, there's a lot of options out there that will highlight amenities in certain areas of the parks, and that would also, as well as with the visitor center, tell you if there's accessibility in that area.
I see a question, and I'm going to drop a link into the chat to everybody. Someone was asking about photos and digital resources. So in the chat, this should go to everybody. We have an online digital gallery that is home to tens of thousands of high resolution photos and other digital assets. The majority of them are public domain, which means you can use them in your brochures, in your materials, the majority of them. You'll want to check the rights on the photo to make sure. There are some historic photos that may not be public domain, but generally speaking. Also, when you go to an individual park website, look for the maps information. They'll often have posted digital versions of the map and guide, even of the summer newspapers or of the seasonal newspapers. So often there are some downloadable things available at park websites you can use, you could print, you can incorporate them into your resources. Also, this is a real inside tip. I want to recommend the website Flickr, F-L-I-C-K-R. So it's a photography website, Flickr. A lot of national parks, I'd say at least 100 or so that I follow on Flickr. Many of our best photographers, and we have some amazing photographers in the National Park Service, they actually post more to the Flickr accounts. You can find amazing, amazing photos from Great Sand Dunes and Grand Canyon and parks in Utah, all over the country on Flickr. So if you're ever looking for high-res photos, that's actually where I go. And you can follow those park accounts, and they're all public domain and free to use. So just a tip there.
Yes, I also saw that there was a question about the senior pass, but unfortunately the senior pass is only available to US citizens and permanent residents. So someone visiting from Italy would not be eligible to get that. But again, that $80 annual pass is available to anyone. There is no eligibility requirements, and if you're visiting more than a few parks that charge the entrance, it's probably still a better financial deal.
Let's see here. We have a few other questions. Oh, about ranger activities, and are they free, and can you book them? So by far, I mean, ranger activities, ranger-led hikes, ranger presentations, ranger experiences are free. I mean, far and away, they're free. If it's a cave tour or a guided tour like that, there may be a few places here and there where there's a fee and there's rangers involved. As far as booking, great question. I'll hand it over to Kelsey and Ashley for their take on it. Generally no, but they are often scheduled ahead of time, and so you can know the schedule. But let me turn it to Kelsey and Ashley for that one.
Yes, so if there are limitations for the size of group, that will be posted in the newspaper. So one example is if you were to visit during the winter a snowshoe led tour, there might only be 20 slots on the tour, but I know, speaking for Mount Rainier, those are not reservable in advance. It's just first come, first serve, but you can show up that morning and get your spot in line. And so for the most part, the ranger programs are designed to be open to as many that can attend. So there might be limitations if it's a hike, or for instance, the cave access, where the only way to reach that area is on a guided program that might be at a scheduled time. But oftentimes those ranger programs are designed so that they go to areas that you could visit on your own. And like a campfire program at a campground, you know, they could have 100 people. There are that many benches. And so there is no need to reserve in advance. It's just seeing what time it is so that you make sure you're in the right location at the right time to participate. But they are designed to be free and open to as many visitors that would like to attend.
You can find the activities on the park's website. If you go right to the front page of any particular park, there is a calendar section, and you can see what kind of activities are going on a given month. And it often will tell you if there is a fee or not.
I will say, everyone, you just met my wife as she walked through. We're all working from home these days, aren't we? So, you know, those things happen. And I hope you all got to say hi. That's my wife, Peggy. I'll just say in closing, I think one last question we had, and then we'll finish up, I think. Someone asked about how much time to experience the parks that we just profiled. I'm going to take a guess. And if you flew into Seattle, you could make this a 2-week road trip. It would be fairly quick. You know, I think a day or two at the major parks, Olympic, Mount Rainier, Lewis and Clark, we didn't even talk about, at the mouth of the Columbia River. Gorgeous scenery at the mouth of the Columbia, and the amazing story of the Lewis and Clark expedition. Down the Oregon coast, the coastline is amazing. Down to Redwood, over to Lassen, up through Oregon to Crater Lake, up through Washington to Mount Rainier, up to North Cascades, and then back to Seattle, some of the parks outside Seattle. If you visited each of the major sites for a day or two, you could make that a 2-week road trip. If you could make it a 3-week road trip, it'd be even better, because you could really spend time in the different parts of those parks and maybe even visit Vancouver while you're at it. But 2 weeks, maybe 3. And Kelsey and Ashley, any final thoughts or observations?
No, thank you all for the great questions. Hopefully we provided some good information. But yeah, I would recommend that 1 to 3 days at each of the locations would be a great way to see a lot of the park, unless there were plans to do some more multi-day hiking, would be the only exception. But if you're staying close to those day activities, I think 1 to 3 days in each of the major locations would be sufficient.
That's
Well,
it, I'm good.
Yeah, you go, Ashley.
I'm good.
I just wanted to thank you, all of you, for your time and spending your time presenting so beautiful parks. So I'm sure that these indications will be inspiring our travel agents. So again, thank you. I think the next time we will be hosting Donald and the National Park staff is gonna be on the 9th of March. Correct me if I'm wrong.
That sounds right.
It sounds right. Okay. So again, thank you. And message to all the travel agents: if you have any requests for, let's say, any presentation of any specific national parks or details, just feel free to ask Leah, and we will try to submit your requests to Donald, which I'm sure he will try to make a presentation on the request parks. So I would say again, thanks a lot to everybody for joining. Thank you, Donald. Thank you, Kelsey. And thank you, Ashley, for a fantastic presentation. And have a good day.
Thank you all. Ciao.
Bye-bye.